Hello everyone, I'm Narinderjeet Kaur and I'm a scholar at IIT Roorkee and I will be presenting my topic that is around urban morphology and the phenomenology and the case of Jaisalmer Fort, Rajasthan. Uh, so the point of contestation over here is that the urban morphology and the phenomenology aspect existed in Indian planning diaspora. And in this introduction that we show is that we had been having the first urban settlements, the second urban settlements, and the southern states urban settlements in these phases since 4,500 years ago. And the parameters that are common to all these are the geographical locational attributes, centrality of activities, and organization and orientation that we had. Further, the categorization of historic phases took us into these seven phases where we have these Harappan towns, we have Mahajanapadas, and we have native settlement towns. And then we have the invasion settlements, the Islamic towns, and the invasion settlements of the colonial towns, and the after independence era. The research quest led us to explore the concept of phenomenology and which was inherent, whether it was inherent in the planning thought process or not. And the aim is to elaborate upon the organic behavior and formal setting of the Jaisalmer Fort. The objectives are to understand the generic principles and explore the uniqueness of the Jaisalmer Fort and to question whether these principles were carried over or why they have left from the mainstream urban research. The methodology involves a comprehensive analysis between the theory of phenomenology and the urban morphology of Jaisalmer Fort area. The study and the context area is in the northwest of the Indian peninsula, and it is Rajputana has stood the test of times against Islamic and colonial invasion. And this fort is still live, so that is the case of Jaisalmer Fort that we will be presenting today. And it has sustained through centuries. And it can show us how these urban settlements have sustained and an abstract representation through the lens of phenomenology that we are approaching for. Phenomenology as a theory is the word which how Heidegger gives us. It's from the Greek word legend to phenomena, and it implies to let what shows itself be seen from itself. So that is the tangible part of it. That is the subjectivity, objectivity of it. And then there is a subjectivity to everything that we see. That is appearing, bringing to light, and causality as a form of responsibility for the presencing and revealing of things. Further, the phenomenology theory that we see is how Edmund Husserl explains about how the human brain or the human neurons works towards a pattern where you have a diagonal line, which is the lead of the pattern, how you can break and decipher the pattern. And the further complex patterns, they are geometrical in articulation and they are shown through circles, arcs, and patterns. That is how we try to remember them or the complex of the pattern from the nature that is a tree. Yeah, we are to articulate it through roots, trunk, branch, and leaves. You see. So how does this culminate into urban form? So in urban form that we see is people and centrality are the key actors that start the phase. And the phenomenology concept of appearances and the revealing part is seen through three factors that is the placemaking, experiential implications in the city, and the activities. So the activities could be cultural and religious phenomena and meanings, and the daily course also. Placemaking is the urban space and the urban environments which it creates. And the experiential is like the technological advances or the infrastructural part that we see, the kind of technology which has changed them. The interaction of the urban phenomena, why do we want to see them? So we see a morphological, sociological, and behavior element in this. We see sustainable, effective, and holistic ecosystem for urban regeneration. In the picture in the right hand side that you see the close knit or the distance between the two sides of the street so that the sun is not penetrated to the ground when you're walking on these streets, apart from keeping eyes on the street. And there's a two-way interaction which happens in these ja- uh, areas like just in the port. The community activity spaces also these were punctured alongside these streets. That is the poles, patras, mohallas, chowks, bazaars, marts, and ghats, mini congregation area that you can say. And they suffice to the SDG 11 also, being as inclusive, safe, and sustainable cityscape. So how does this model work? This is the kind of a framework that we developed upon to see through these phenomenological approach. We have this activity and the human which is involved in that. So these activities could be physical, could be perceptual, or could be conceptual. And what is the stage that is set for these activities? That is the placemaking and the urban morphology. The placemaking has its own parameters of morphological, sociological, behavioral, meaningful public spaces, and unique character and identity. And the urban morphology is directional in nature. It has community spaces, it has nodes, and it has ribbons. The context here, which we are showing you, this is a Google map of the Jaisalmer Fort, which was built in 12th century. We see the precinct on the highland, and there are linear organization in the lower town. And we see the Gadisar Lake, which is the water source in the vicinity. And this is like the Jaisalmer Fort consists of around 400 houses, group of temples, and a palace complex that we see. These are two maps of Jaisalmer Fort that we see is along with the lower town and only the fort area. So we see the geomorphology is respected to the streets along the geomorphology, and then finally cutting through in the center is the royal palace complex that we see. And the organization and orientation is respected through the natural setting as well as water features in the vicinity. Further, that we see that Jaisalmer through the phenomenology is it was built by Raja Ram Jaisal, and we have the Gadisar Lake, which was built in 14th century, and it is fed by rainwater. And there are 9 levels of the lake that we have, the Gadisar itself. And other than that, we had various wells, temples, and johar. These created the interactive phenomenology on wherever they existed in the city. And the annual Sand Dunes Festival is the one which is visited by national as well as international tourists and academic diaspora also, the kind of feel that the city gives to. And these two images from Jaisalmer, they put across the point that whether you're walking on these streets, you have so much to encounter, so much to anchor with. It is an interactive street and it gives you an experiential feeling. Maybe 10 years down the line, you will still remember the street where you saw these things or you bought these things or you ate something, how colorful these things were. And they could be your anchors for your next visit to the places. Further, this is the Royal Complex that we see, and the Royal Complex has these small dots that I'm showing you. The biggest one is the Royal Square, and then we have these smaller squares for the congregation for the Katra kind of a thing, where the interaction, community interaction happens, apart from the built masses that we see. And these streets were on the east-west direction so that they can take care of the dust storms. And the streets were narrow so that the cool and shaded environment could be provided. Further, the walls that we have is we have 3 layers of walls with the Jaisalmer fort. So that was a kind of a defensive mechanism where if the uh, enemy is able to breach the first layer, though they were taken care by the second and the third layer of the fortification. Further, there is a comparison that we did with the northwest settlements of that is the first urban settlement in the Harappan era. And there were quite a lot of similarities that we found in the northwest Rajputana towns as well as the Indus towns. Like it's a Kandana of the Indus model, water sources in the vicinity, upper town and lower town formation, advanced sanitation and water drainage system, dynastic organization, linearity and geomorphic orientation, and cardinal things. So similar kind of points that we see in the Harappan civilization from there. So, yeah, and both have the same location, locational area. So the kind of way forward that we see in this is that the ancient and native Indian settlement study from the perspective of phenomenology is one of the key factors to improvise the current scenario. As historic fabric seldom finds its incorporation and presence in the city, the need is to focus on studies from diverse perspectives. Phenomenology could be one of the perspectives. There could be many perspectives to see these historic areas. And in this way, we would be able to engage in an urban dialogue of placemaking and the urban form in such areas and be able to revive them to their old glory. And cities are very complex network of cultural interaction associations. And the manifestation that we see, they are the mirror of life, they are domesticities, culture of inhabitants, and decode cities past. If we are able to understand these uh, precinct areas, we will be able to understand how the transformation happened from that era to this era, and whatever the gap in between could be bridged. And or it could be just one way of understanding these city layers from their perspectives. Thank you very much.